let's see. I think that it's been almost a year and a month since you joined StrikeGraph as a partner, and you've had a phenomenal compliance journey. We're really proud of you guys, I have to say. Tell us a little bit about how it started and where you're at. Yeah.
Absolutely. So in our case, the trigger was an agreement that we came to with the Department of uh, Instruction, essentially, in the state of North Carolina. So when you have an agreement like that, there are a whole set of obligations that ensue. Honestly, we didn't even fully understand how many when we first struck that, but it's the kind of thing that's exactly on mission for us. There's a broader perspective that was driving this forward. So when we realized, oh, okay, this is a thing, we're going to have to figure out how we move forward on SOC 2. Our own research indicated that this could in fact be a standard that if we could meet it, we would be able to parlay into other such agreements as they come down. And of course, we're hoping we'll have other agreements like that come down. So step one was really to figure out how to size this thing up. What does this mean? We really didn't know. And again, we are not in a position to just hire new staff to manage all these things or anything. So we needed to find a partner. And as I kind of hinted at earlier, it just so happened that as we put our heads together and tried to think about who we could talk to that might give us some insight, Justin's name popped up. We're like, yeah, we should talk to Justin. He probably knows a thing or two about this. So yeah, we called up Justin. He said, well, I just happened to be launching this new company that's focused on this. So
Very
it was a really
typical for me, Ahrash. That happens
yeah,
sometimes. Yes.
it was a pretty strange moment, but we really felt like we totally lucked out with that because there was so much less work to do and kind of evaluating whether we trusted this person and StrikeGraph to help us on that journey and so on. So the process itself, a huge amount of it. So the type 1, which is a point in time, is hard. I think we had it a little backwards in our heads because we were obligated to get to a type 2, which is more of a sampling across time. And I think because of the imposition of time as one of the variables you must accommodate for the type 2, the presumption is the type 2 is much harder. But in fact, the type 1, you really have to produce evidence for every single one of the controls that you've decided to adhere to. And so in a lot of ways, that's a harder standard because it's comprehensive across the entire set. It also is kind of the first one you have to get to. And so there's a lot more that you realize, oh, wow, we really haven't ever documented that we do that, or boy, we could really tighten that up. And so there was a lot to do. I think the key part for us was kind of getting, I would say, reconciling the requirements of the standard. So in essence, what are the various controls and the points of evidence and so on, and why are they there, with the reality of who we are as an organization and how we operate. So the standard comes across as being quite rigid and kind of clean cut, but in fact, the interpretation of that is subject to modification and interpretation. And that's a conversation that you could have internally, and you could make your own judgment calls and best guesses, but we were in no position to do that, right? We needed the advice and the insight and the expertise from StrikeGraph, and then ultimately further from the auditor, to help us agree, basically verify that when, for example, we're a totally virtual organization. So if there's a standard that says you have to have a clean desk at the end of the day, probably not, right? It's not a critical part of being a secure operation when there is no shared office space. So anyhow, we got to the type 1. That was actually really interesting. It was painful at times, but it really did give us a lot of insight into our own practices and where we could improve. And then the type 2 was really just now all the learnings from the type 1, continuing what was going well, improving on what we knew we needed to improve, and adding a few more things to sort of shore up any kind of perceived potential or perceived gaps in our security posture. And ultimately we got, the 1-2 punch within the deadlines that were imposed on the basis of this agreement that we had.